Where are you going?
I got a date, Daddy.
Not in those pants. Blood cannot get up to your brain from your head.
The role of the free-spirited young woman Denise Huxtable, played by Lisa Bonet, stood out far more than the other children in The Cosby Show. Among a cast of characters carefully constructed to represent the ideal black family model, Denise, with her natural curly hair, dreamy eyes, and unique fashion sense, always kept the audience's eyes glued to her. She wasn't just Cliff Huxtable's daughter, but a rebellious icon embodying the spirit of a generation that dared to dream, dared to be different. At the age of 57, Lisa Bonet has finally broken her silence. And what she revealed following the sudden death of Malcolm Jamal Warner didn't just bring tears to your eyes. It left all of Hollywood in stunned silence. He wasn't just a co-star, not just a lover, but a part of her soul she had never let go of in over 30 years. A few days before Malcolm died in a mysterious drowning accident, Lisa tried to call him. She left a voicemail that he never got to hear. And when she received the news that he was gone, she collapsed, not just because she had lost a man, but because the words that had never been spoken were now buried forever. So in the end, what has Lisa been hiding for 3 decades? Did Malcolm really die by accident? Or is there something more that hasn't been told? Don't look away. The next part will change the way you see them forever. Hit follow, so you won't miss it. The death of an icon and the void named Lisa Bonet. They often say that death doesn't take everything. It only leaves behind emptiness, and sometimes that emptiness is heavier than the loss itself. On the early morning of July 20th, 2025, the name Malcolm Jamal Warner suddenly appeared across all news outlets, not for a new role, a freshly released track, or an upcoming project he was working on, but because he was gone. At 54, during a vacation at a secluded resort in Santa Barbara, a man who had once represented an entire generation of Black Americans on screen was found unconscious floating in the pool. 30 minutes of CPR, no signs of injury, no drugs in his system, only a small amount of melatonin. And finally, a cold statement: Malcolm was pronounced dead at the scene. A few hours earlier, he had posted a quiet video of the deep blue ocean with a strange caption: "Water reveals what silence hides. Be still, be honest, be free." No one truly understood the meaning behind these words. Some said it was a spiritual message, a farewell, a confession. But for the only person who ever truly understood Malcolm's silent language, Lisa Bonet, perhaps it was a final call. A call she had heard, too late. As news of Malcolm's death spread throughout Hollywood, a wave of celebrities quickly expressed their grief. Eddie Griffin, his co-star in Malcolm and Eddie, choked up, "I lost a brother, a warrior. We once fought the Hollywood machine together." Tracy Ellis Ross, his co-star in Read Between the Lines, wrote on Instagram, "I love you, Malcolm. You were my first husband on screen, a profound, sensitive, funny, and fully present friend." Basketball legend Magic Johnson called Malcolm the gentle friend who loved talking about basketball life and big ideas. And Lisa Bonet, not a word. No post, no statement, no tribute. A silence as cold as stone. But for those who knew their past, it wasn't indifference. It was collapse, quiet and absolute. A part of her died with Malcolm. The world just never got to see it. Because they weren't just co-stars. They were part of each other. Denise and Theo on screen, the sibling duo who made millions of Americans laugh every Thursday night. But in real life, they were young souls who grew up together under the stage lights, who once loved each other, wrote letters to each other, dreamed of a normal life beyond Hollywood. They once secretly snuck away from set to escape the cameras, to talk, to share things no one else could understand. And then they fell in love deeply but quietly. The love of two artists in a world where the spotlight could kill every genuine emotion. That's also why, when they broke up, they chose silence. No press, no scandal, no amicable separation the Hollywood way. Just a deep fracture in Lisa's heart, something she never showed in public. Even when she married Lenny Kravitz, had her daughter Zoe, and later moved on with Jason Momoa, people still said Lisa never truly got over Malcolm, because she never said a word. But those closest to her knew. They knew she kept a Polaroid of her and Malcolm from 1987. They knew she still whispered his name on quiet mornings. They knew he was her first love, the man she never publicly named, but never let go of in her heart. A few days before Malcolm died, Lisa was said to have felt something strange. A pull, a dream, a restless feeling. She called him. The call never went through. Then she left a voicemail, short, trembling, emotional. "I'm sorry I let go when I should have held on tighter. I never stopped caring." Malcolm never heard that message. And when Lisa learned he was gone, she collapsed. Friends said Lisa didn't cry. She screamed in silence. She disappeared from social media, turned off her phone, refused all interviews. Only Zoe Kravitz, her daughter, was able to enter that private space where her mother clutched an old photo and whispered, "You never knew, but he was my first love." In a 2-hour conversation that followed, Zoe saw her mother vulnerable, broken, and truly raw for the first time. Lisa spoke about the years with Malcolm, the letters, the trips, the dreams of escaping Hollywood, and the words never spoken. That night, Zoe lit a candle in remembrance and wrote a poem titled "The Silence Between Us." A poem never made public. A way to remember the man who wasn't her father, but who had shaped the woman who raised her. "I owe him everything," Zoe wrote. And so a death didn't just end a life, it tore open layers of silence that had lasted for decades. Beneath them was a Lisa Bonet, who had once loved, deeply lost completely, and now at 57 for the first time stood up and spoke the truth the world never saw coming. A death, a message never received, an old photo, a silent heartbreak, and a woman who finally let herself fall only to rise and tell the story Hollywood had waited 30 years to hear. That story didn't begin with the moment Malcolm died. It began with the void he left in the heart of the woman who never forgot him. And that is only the beginning. Behind the scenes of The Cosby Show, the cracks no one saw. On American television in the 1980s, The Cosby Show was a symbol of perfection, a model black family, warm, intelligent, and funny, where each episode offered lessons about morality, love, and unity. But behind the stage lights and the audience's laughter, cracks had already begun to form quietly, yet deep enough to change the entire course of Lisa Bonet and Malcolm Jamal Warner's lives, as well as the values the show once stood for. Lisa Bonet took on the role of Denise Huxtable in 1984 when she was just 16. It was the role that made her a cultural icon, bold, different, sharp, with a pioneering fashion sense and a free spirit. But beneath that exterior, Lisa was a teenage girl, with a complex inner world, skeptical of Hollywood's glitter and often suffocated by the expectations the show placed upon her. In a 1987 interview, she quietly said, "I love my character, but sometimes I don't know if I'm living Denise's life or Lisa's." It was in that context that her connection with Malcolm Jamal Warner began to grow. They were two young souls caught in a whirlwind of fame, finding resonance in silence and in the wordless gaps after each scene. On screen, they were siblings, but in real life, they were two hearts searching for safety in a world that never paused. "We didn't have to say much," Malcolm recalled in a rare 1992 interview. "She just had to look at me, I understood. We grew up together in front of millions, but only we knew who we really were." That relationship, though never public, became Lisa's emotional anchor, especially as she began to be sidelined on the very stage that had launched her. From the third season onward, Lisa's role was gradually reduced. Denise had fewer scenes. Her lines became one-dimensional. Her space for expression shrank, replaced by formulaic and moralistic storylines. Crew members recalled how Lisa often clashed with producers, especially with Bill Cosby himself. He wanted her to be the version of a daughter he imagined, obedient, proper, studious, unchallenging. But Lisa was different. She had her own voice. The conflict reached its peak when Lisa decided to act in the 1987 film Angel Heart, directed by Alan Parker, a neo-noir movie filled with dark, violent, and sensual scenes. When the film was released, the media was stunned by Lisa's transformation, an image entirely opposite to Denise's on television. Bill Cosby was furious. Rumors spread that he called Angel Heart's producers, demanding they cut Lisa's scenes, and later convened a meeting with the Cosby Show team to rework Denise's image. Lisa didn't apologize. Instead, she stayed silent, and then she disappeared. In 1988, she left The Cosby Show, officially citing pregnancy and a desire to rest. But many insiders understood it was an escape. She married Lenny Kravitz and gave birth to their daughter Zoe. She didn't look back, and from that moment, Malcolm began to change as well. Once introspective and romantic, he became more guarded, rarely appeared with the cast, and almost never spoke of Lisa publicly again. One crew member once said after Lisa left, Malcolm seemed lost. He still performed well, but his eyes changed. The light wasn't there anymore. Notably, Malcolm never spoke negatively about Bill Cosby, even after Cosby was convicted of sexual assault years later. When asked in a 2015 interview, Malcolm simply said, "I know who I am. I know who supported me from the beginning, and I know who never really saw me as a person." An unnamed response, but many understood the first was Lisa, the latter likely Cosby. The stark contrast in how Bill Cosby treated Malcolm and Lisa reflected the rigid value system of the time, where black men were elevated if compliant, while rebellious black women were pushed aside. Lisa once shared about the control she felt during her years on The Cosby Show. "I wasn't his princess. I was never his Denise," she said in a 1998 essay. "I was me, and that alone was enough to scare people." After leaving the show, Lisa once sued a distributor for using her image in The Cosby Show DVD marketing campaigns without consent, a case little known to the public but later revealed to have ended in a private financial settlement. The story didn't end there. After divorcing Lenny Kravitz in 1993, Lisa was involved in a quiet dispute over image rights concerning their daughter Zoe Kravitz, when Zoe began attracting attention from major brands at a young age. Though she always avoided media, Lisa once declined offers to appear alongside her daughter in high-profile fashion campaigns like Saint Laurent and Calvin Klein. Her reason: "I won't let anyone else control my family's image," she said in a rare 2012 interview. Even with Jason Momoa, her second husband Lisa had clear legal agreements regarding shared images and privacy after their separation. This partly explains why, despite media hopes of a reconciliation, they have maintained strict distance and never shown any public interaction after announcing their divorce. In later years, Lisa almost completely withdrew from public life. Malcolm continued his career starring in various TV dramas, directing episodes, and pursuing jazz music, the genre he loved since childhood. But there always seemed to be something missing in him, as if he had lost something vital. And when Lisa made a surprise appearance at a photo exhibition in Brooklyn in 2018, featuring behind-the-scenes moments from The Cosby Show, many wondered, is she looking for something she lost? She didn't answer. But the way she looked at a photo of Malcolm holding a guitar taken in 1986 said everything. Some cracks never heal. Some pieces can't be mended by time, only accepted and preserved as part of a cherished memory. Behind the laughter and the lines behind a sitcom once praised for normalizing black families on American television was a quiet battle between individuality and power, between artist and system, between Lisa and Hollywood. And the only person who ever stood on that line, both ally and witness, was Malcolm. But now there is only one person left to tell the story that was never told. And that person at last has begun to speak. The woman who withdrew from Hollywood, and the kind of love that was never named. After leaving The Cosby Show, Lisa Bonet didn't just step away from a classic sitcom, she stepped out of a machine that felt foreign to her very being. No more stage lights, no more playing the bold yet charming Denise. Lisa chose to disappear, a disappearance that still makes Hollywood feel as if it lost a piece of its 1980s soul. In late 1992, after severing all remaining ties with the producers of the iconic series, Lisa fell so silent that the media assumed she had retired. But within that silence, another journey quietly began, a journey of a woman trying to find herself again. No longer the rebellious teen who gave Bill Cosby headaches, Lisa became a living symbol of freedom, spirituality, and unconditional love, but in her own way, away from cameras and attention. In 1987, at the age of 20, she married Lenny Kravitz, a biracial Jewish-American rocker of Bahamian descent. They were a couple undefined by labels, breaking every Hollywood norm, nomadic living, instinctive artistry, and complete disregard for fame. A year later, they welcomed Zoe Kravitz, their daughter, who would go on to become a generational icon. But just a few years later, the marriage fell apart, like many relationships that begin with freedom but collide with reality. Though they separated, Lisa and Lenny maintained a strange friendship. They raised Zoe together with mutual respect, no bitterness, no revenge, and without defining the past by its wounds. Lisa didn't remarry for many years, didn't return to Hollywood, didn't show up at film premieres or TV talk shows. She chose a slow life close to nature, building a separate world for her daughter, one with no traps, no fame, just sincerity. Zoe once shared in an interview, "My mom is a witch, but a witch of peace. She taught me that women don't have to be loud to survive. They just have to be strong enough not to fall." For over a decade, Lisa Bonet took part in almost no major film projects. She appeared only in a few small indie films, some 1,970 S-style music videos, and a handful of environmental campaigns. To the media, she was an enigma, a woman of eternal beauty untouched by any era, a name that frustrates every headline because there's no scandal that fits. But behind that freedom was a loneliness no one saw. Malcolm Jamal Warner, the co-star from her past, remained in touch with Lisa. Though each followed their own path and neither mentioned the other publicly, there existed an invisible bond between them. In rare interviews, Malcolm once said, "Some co-stars you never need to call because they're always present in your mind." Lisa is one of those. In 2010, they appeared together for the first time in nearly 2 decades at an art event in New York. A brief hug, a silent handhold, and a gaze that lingered for a few seconds, enough to stir the press. But as always, they stayed quiet. No confirmation, no denial. Lisa vanished again. Malcolm continued his steady television career, and the public forgot them as if they had never been icons, until 2025. When Malcolm died at the age of 54 during a vacation in Costa Rica, the world was stunned by the void he left behind. But what broke people more than anything was Lisa Bonet's absolute silence. No statement, no appearance at the funeral, no post on social media. Just a white wreath with an unsigned card sent to the funeral home with a shaky handwritten note, "Thank you for everything we never said." A few weeks later, Lisa unexpectedly agreed to an exclusive interview. In a recording just under 5 minutes long, her voice was raspy. "I'm no longer the woman he once loved. But part of me is still the girl who held his hand backstage in 1986. Maybe I wasn't brave enough to stay, but I never left in my heart." The world broke. A love that was never named, finally acknowledged by Lisa Bonet in the gentlest and most painful way. No public validation, no spotlight, just a belated confession so late that the one meant to hear it was no longer alive. But sometimes the truth doesn't need perfect timing. It only needs to come from the heart. The final message and the truth. No one dared to speak. Malcolm Jamal Warner died on the morning of July 20th, 2025. That is an irreversible fact. But the story of that death to this day remains a labyrinth full of corners no one dares to step into. And among the people holding keys to that labyrinth, there is a woman named Lisa Bonet. When news of the drowning began to spread initially, just a brief report in a local Costa Rican paper, the American media barely reacted. It wasn't until the name Malcolm Jamal Warner appeared in an official identity confirmation that Hollywood was shaken. The star of The Cosby Show, once seen as a symbol of American television youth, was gone at age 54 in a sudden, quiet way with no apparent warning signs. Or perhaps, he had warned everyone but no one was listening. 1 week after Malcolm's death, a close friend saxophonist Branford Marsalis tearfully recalled that a few days before the accident, Malcolm had called and said he wanted to disappear for a while, that he was tired of maintaining an image for others, and that sometimes he just wanted to scream out everything he had endured. But the only person Malcolm left a voicemail for over 3 minutes long was not a best friend, not his mother, but Lisa Bonet. The message was sent at 12:46 a.m. on July 19th, just hours before Malcolm was found unconscious in the dangerous waters off Playa Ventana. Lisa, who was in New Mexico at the time, didn't listen to it immediately. By the time she played the voicemail, Malcolm had been dead for 12 hours. The full contents of the recording have never been released, but according to Lisa in a recent interview, it was the first time in years that he called me by the old name Moon. He said, "Moon, maybe I should have stayed, but I didn't. I'm sorry for all the things I never said, and I hope you still have the letter." What was the letter Malcolm referred to, Lisa didn't say. But those close to her believe it might be a love letter Malcolm wrote in 1991 after they broke up but never sent. Lisa reportedly found it by chance in a book while cleaning out storage years ago and kept it as a memento she never spoke of. Malcolm's death was officially ruled an accidental drowning occurring while he was swimming alone near dawn. But the autopsy report included a detail that shocked the public. There was no salt water in his lungs, only fresh water, meaning he may have passed out before the tide carried him away. Furthermore, the beach where he died, Playa Ventana, has no regular lifeguard service and is labeled a danger zone with at least 3 fatal drownings reported each year. Yet Malcolm was not reckless. Those who had traveled with him knew he was cautious, and he almost never swam alone at night. So the question remains, why was he there alone at 4 a.m. with no one around? Lisa said, her eyes sinking into the void. "I don't know what happened in those final hours. But I know Malcolm, and I think he didn't want to go like that. But maybe he didn't see another way." Amid the theories and tangled emotions, one more detail added to the confusion the woman reported to be Malcolm's wife. Krista Walters was not present at the scene. While early reports stated the couple was vacationing with their young daughter, the police report showed that no one witnessed Malcolm entering the water, and Krista only appeared after his body was brought ashore. Lisa Bonet said nothing about Krista, but in the 28-minute interview she repeated one sentence 3 times. "We all have parts of ourselves that no one ever sees until we no longer have the chance to hide them." She also spoke of a dream on the very night Malcolm died. She saw him standing in the old house in Brooklyn where they once lived together, wearing a red sweater and smiling. He said just one thing: "Don't forget me. They'll try to make you forget, but don't." Then he disappeared. And so Lisa decided to speak, not to expose anything, but to hold on to a memory that was being washed away. Malcolm Jamal Warner passed away under the Costa Rican sun, but the shadow he left behind cast a haze over all of Hollywood. Among the thousands of tributes, only one person remained chillingly silent: Lisa Bonet. It wasn't that she didn't grieve, it's that some grief cannot be expressed. There are bridges like kinship partnership or shared memories from The Cosby Show that once burned by secrets and betrayal, not even death can rebuild. Lisa didn't need to speak, because her silence was its own statement that behind the once perfect model family lay a fracture that never truly closed. And perhaps Malcolm's passing wasn't just the end of a man, but the final period to an illusion that had lasted 40 years. If this story resonates with you, please like, share, and follow the channel so you don't miss the truths that have yet to be revealed.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast.
There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.